The Silent Watchers Commander John Miller stood alone on the observation deck of Station Omega-7, humanity's most distant outpost. A massive window before him showed nothing but stars and the faint glow of Jupiter far below. He held a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago, lost in thought as he watched the endless void. 3 generations of his family had served in the Space Defense Force, all of them watching and waiting for threats that never came. The station floated in the Yasti, darkness like a metal island, home to 30 souls who kept watch over humanity's frontier. It was quiet duty, some would say boring. They monitored space traffic, tracked asteroids, and sent reports back to Earth that nobody ever seemed to read. John had been here for 5 years, and the most exciting thing that had happened was when a cargo ship lost navigation and nearly crashed into Europa. "Commander Miller!" The voice shattered the silence. Lieutenant Anna Blake burst through the door, her face pale and eyes wide with something John had never seen before, genuine fear. "What is it, Lieutenant?" John set down his cold coffee, already moving toward the command center. "Sir, you need to see this. Our deep space sensors just picked up something massive." Anna's hands shook as she pulled up the data on the main screen. "At first, we thought it was an asteroid field, but the patterns are all wrong. It's moving in formation." John studied the readings, and his blood turned to ice. 10,000 objects, each one the size of a city, moving in perfect synchronization. Toward Earth. These weren't asteroids. These were ships. How long have they been traveling? John asked, his military training taking over despite the shock. Based on their speed and trajectory, Anna ran the calculations again, hoping she was wrong. 100 years, sir. They launched these ships a century ago. Meanwhile, 10 billion miles away, Supreme Commander Vox stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devastator. His gray skin rippled with satisfaction as he reviewed the ancient battle plans. 4 generations of his people had lived and died on these ships, all for this moment. When their scouts had discovered Earth in the year 2057, the humans were barely able to reach their own moon. They had primitive nuclear weapons and fought amongst themselves constantly. "Tell me again about our victory," Vox commanded his second officer, a younger warrior named Krell. "Supreme Commander, when our ancestors launched this fleet, the humans had no unified space force, no energy shields, no plasma weapons. Even if they advanced in the century of our journey, our calculations show they could not possibly match our preparation. We have trained 40,000 warriors who know nothing but war. Our weapons can shatter moons. Our shields have been tested against stellar radiation. Victory is certain." Vox nodded slowly. His grandfather had started this journey. His father had continued it. Now he would finish it. The Dominion Empire would add Earth to its collection of conquered worlds, and the humans would serve as workers in their mines. It was the way of the universe. The strong dominated the weak. Back on Earth, the Global Defense Council gathered in an emergency session. The room was filled with the most powerful people on the planet, but they all looked to one person, President Maria Torres. She stood at the head of the table, reading the report from Station Omega-7 with no visible emotion. "How long until they arrive?" she asked General David Park, Earth's military commander. 48 hours, Madam President. Their ships are decelerating now, preparing to enter Earth orbit." The general's face was grim, but not panicked. President Torres nodded once, then spoke 5 words that would echo through history. "Activate the quantum defense grid." The room stirred. Most of the council knew about Earth's conventional defenses, the orbital platforms, the fighter squadrons, the moon bases. But the quantum defense grid was something else entirely. It was humanity's greatest secret, known only to a select few. "Madam President," one council member ventured, "are you certain?" The quantum weapons have never been used in actual combat. The aliens spent a century preparing to fight the humans they found in 2057. Torres replied, her voice steady and confident. They based their entire strategy on intelligence that's 100 years out of date, while they crawled through space. At sublight speeds, we discovered something they never imagined possible. General Park activated a holographic display showing Earth surrounded by a network of invisible points. Quantum entanglement weaponry. Every defensive platform, every ship, even Station Omega-7, has been equipped with weapons that strike instantly. Across any distance, space itself becomes irrelevant. We can hit them from anywhere, at any time, faster than the speed of light. The council members absorbed this information. Some looked relieved, others concerned about revealing their greatest secret. But all understood the stakes. Back at Station Omega-7, Commander Miller assembled his crew in the main hall. 30 faces looked back at him. Engineers, scientists, soldiers. They had signed up for a quiet post at the edge of nowhere. Now they were about to become the first line of defense against an alien invasion. "I won't lie to you," John began, his voice carrying across the room. 10,000 enemy ships are heading our way. They've been traveling for 100 years to get here. They think we're the same primitive species their scouts found a century ago. Lieutenant Blake raised her hand. "Commander, should we be afraid?" John smiled, the kind of smile his grandfather might have worn before a battle. They spent 100 years preparing to fight the humans of 2057. They're about to meet the humans of 2157, and we're going to show them exactly how much a species can change in a century. The crew straightened, fear replaced by determination. Outside the station, the stars continued their eternal dance, unaware that everything was about to change. The aliens thought they were bringing war to a primitive world. They had no idea they were flying into a trap that had been set the moment. Humanity learned they weren't alone in the universe. The countdown had begun. In 48 hours, the galaxy would learn why humanity had survived every challenge thrown at them. Not through superior numbers or ancient wisdom, but through something far more powerful, the ability to adapt, evolve, and overcome any threat, no matter how impossible it seemed. The aliens had spent a century preparing for war. Humanity would end it in 6 minutes. Asterisk in the depths of the Devastator. Elder Keeper Thax walked through the Hall of Memory. The walls displayed images of their home world, a place none of the current generation had ever seen. Thax was 90 years old, born on this very ship 10 years after it left the Dominion Empire. His entire life had been preparation for the next 48 hours. "Tell me, young one," Thax spoke to his apprentice, a warrior named Dren, who was only 20. "What do you know of our journey?" "We are the chosen generation, Elder," Dren replied with practiced precision. "Our great-grandfathers saw the opportunity. A primitive world, rich in resources, defended by creatures who had barely discovered atomic energy. They launched our fleet knowing they would never see victory, but their children's children would. Claim the prize." Thax nodded, running his 6-fingered hand along a memorial wall. 10,000 ships. 2 million souls at the start. Now, 800,000 remain. Generations lived and died in these metal halls, never breathing natural air, never feeling real sunlight. All for this moment. The ship's walls were covered with the names of those who had died during the journey. Accidents, diseases, old age. Some ships had been lost to mechanical failures, others to madness, the psychological toll of a century. In space had broken many minds, but the survivors were stronger for it. They were not just soldiers. They were the products of selective breeding, trained from birth. Their entire culture shaped around a single purpose, the conquest of Earth. "The humans cannot imagine such dedication," Thax continued. Our spies reported they lived short lives, 80 years at most. None of them could conceive of a plan that takes longer than a single lifetime to complete. This is why we will win. We have patience they cannot comprehend. Meanwhile, in a secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Park stood before a different kind of memorial. The wall showed photographs of scientists, not soldiers. These were the heroes nobody knew about, the minds that had saved humanity without firing a single shot. "Tell me about Dr. James Chun," President Torres said, stopping at one particular photo. "He was the one who cracked it," Park replied. "In 2089, 32 years after we detected the approaching fleet, the entire world was in panic. We knew they were coming, but our technology was exactly what they expected: primitive. Chun refused to accept that we couldn't catch up. He said if we couldn't match their journey through space, we'd have to go around space itself." The president moved to the next photo. "And Dr. Lisa Anderson? She made Chun's theories real. First successful quantum entanglement weapon test in 2103. She died believing her work was still theoretical. She never knew we'd built an entire defense grid based on her designs." The bunker contained the true history of the last century, the story the public never heard. When humanity detected the alien fleet in 2057, the governments of Earth made a choice. They would let the people live their lives normally while a secret coalition worked on defense. Every technological advancement was actually military research disguised as civilian progress. The quantum computing revolution? Cover for weapons development. The unified global internet? Actually a defense communication network. "We've been playing the longest con in human history," Torres said quietly. "Letting them think we were still divided, still primitive, while we built weapons that break the laws of physics as they understand them." On the alien fleet, Supreme Commander Vox studied the latest intelligence reports from their long-range sensors. Earth had changed, certainly. The humans had built cities on their moon, established mining operations on asteroids. But nothing suggested military advancement beyond what the Dominion had predicted. "They have perhaps 100 warships," Krell reported. "Our fleet outnumbers them 100 to 1. Their largest weapons appear to be fusion bombs, perhaps 50 megatons at maximum. Our shields can withstand 1,000 times that force. What about these satellites they've deployed?" Vox asked, pointing to numerous dots surrounding Earth. "Communication relays, we believe. Maybe some primitive defense platforms with projectile weapons. Nothing that concerns us." Krell's confidence was absolute. How could it not be? Their entire life, their entire culture, their entire purpose led to this moment. But Vox felt something strange. A sensation his warrior's instincts had developed over 40 years of training. The humans were too calm. Their response to detecting the fleet had been minimal. No panic broadcasts, no desperate military buildup, no attempts at negotiation. It was as if they were waiting for something. "Double our scans," Vox ordered. "Something feels wrong." "Sir?" Krell was confused. "Our victory is assured. The priests have blessed our weapons. The warriors are ready. What could possibly—" "I don't know," Vox interrupted. "But a prey that doesn't run when it sees the predator is either stupid or dangerous. And everything we know about humans says they're not stupid." Back on Station Omega 7, Commander Miller stood in the weapons bay, a room that supposedly didn't exist. The station's official manifest listed it as Storage Bay 7, but behind the false walls lay humanity's most advanced weapons. 12 quantum cannons, each no larger than a refrigerator, each capable of delivering destruction across infinite distance instantaneously. "I still don't understand how they work," Lieutenant Blake admitted, running her hand along one of the devices. "Nobody really does," John replied. "Dr. Chun once said that understanding quantum weapons is like asking a fish to understand fire. Our brains weren't built for it. But we don't need to understand it to use it. The weapons were humanity's great equalizer. While the aliens had spent a century building bigger ships, stronger shields, more powerful conventional weapons, humans had made all of that obsolete. A quantum cannon didn't travel through space to hit its target. It simply decided that damage existed at a specific point, and reality agreed. A targeting system is locked onto every alien ship, Anna reported, checking her console. When the order comes, we can fire all 12 cannons in sequence. Each shot will take approximately half a second to recharge. Total engagement time, 6 minutes. 6 minutes, John repeated. A century of preparation, and we'll end it in 6 minutes. He thought about the aliens, traveling for so long, so sure of their victory. Part of him felt sorry for them. They had done everything right according to their understanding of war. They had superior numbers, superior firepower, superior training. In any conventional battle, they would win easily. But humans didn't fight conventional battles. They never had. From the first time a human ancestor picked up a rock to fight a stronger predator, the species had survived by changing the rules. The aliens were about to learn what every enemy of humanity throughout history had learned. Never give humans time to prepare. Commander, Anna said suddenly, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. President Torres wants to speak with you. John walked to the communication console. The president's face appeared on the screen, calm but serious. Commander Miller, in 36 hours, you will receive the activation codes for the quantum defense grid. When that happens, you and your crew will fire the first shots of this war. You will have exactly 6 minutes to disable the entire alien fleet before they can adapt. The fate of humanity rests on those 6 minutes. We won't let you down, Madam President, John replied. I know you won't, Commander. You're about to show the universe what happens when someone gives humanity 100 years to prepare for a fight. The transmission ended. John looked at his crew, these 30 people who were about to change history. They had trained for this moment without knowing it was coming. Every drill, every simulation, every boring day watching empty space had led to this. The aliens thought their century of preparation made them invincible. They were about to learn that 100 years was more than enough time for humanity to turn the impossible into the inevitable. Asterisk. The alien fleet dropped out of their deceleration burn exactly where they had planned, forming a perfect sphere around Earth at a distance of 1 million miles. 10,000 ships moved with mechanical precision, each one taking its assigned position. It was a display of power meant to break humanity's spirit before the first shot was fired. On the bridge of the Devastator, Supreme Commander Vox stood in his ceremonial armor. 4 generations had waited for this moment. The time for speeches that would be remembered the Dominion's history had arrived. He activated the transmission system, broadcasting on every frequency humans were known to use. People of Earth, Vox began, his translated voice reaching every corner of the planet. I am Supreme Commander Vox of the Dominion Empire. 100 years ago, our scouts found your world. You were primitive then, barely able to leave your planet's surface. We have traveled a century to bring you into our empire. Look upon our fleet and understand the futility of resistance. The transmission showed images of the Dominion's past conquests. Worlds that had fought and fallen, cities turned to ash, populations enslaved. It was psychological warfare perfected over millennia of expansion. We offer you a choice, Vox continued. Surrender now, and your species will be allowed to serve the Dominion with honor. Your children will live, though they will know new masters. Resist, and we will take your world by force. You have 1 hour to respond. In the Global Defense Council chamber, President Torres watched the transmission with her advisors. Some faces showed fear, others anger, but Torres herself seemed almost amused. "He's reading from a script," she observed. "A script written 100 years ago for a species that no longer exists." General Park nodded. "Should we respond immediately, or let them wait?" "We'll respond now," Torres decided. "But first, let's show them who they're really dealing with." "Open a channel, full visual transmission." The president stood, adjusting her jacket. Behind her, the seal of United Earth was displayed, a symbol that hadn't existed when the aliens began their journey. When the channel opened, she spoke with calm authority. "Supreme Commander Vox, I am President Maria Torres, elected leader of United Earth. We receive your transmission and recognize your fleet's long journey. 100 years is a significant investment of resources and lives. We respect the dedication of your people." On the Devastator's bridge, Vox felt that uncomfortable sensation again. The human leader was too composed. Where was the fear? The desperation? Torres continued. "However, there appears to be a misunderstanding. The intelligence your scouts gathered a century ago is severely outdated. We are not the divided, primitive species you expected to find. We are United Earth, and we've been expecting you for quite some time." She gestured, and the display behind her changed. It showed Earth's true defense network, not 100 ships, but thousands of platforms, all connected by streams of quantum energy. Mars and the Moon bristled with weapons. Even the asteroid belt had been turned into a defensive line. "We offer you a counter-proposal," Torres said. "Your fleet will power down its weapons and accept peaceful contact. We can share technology, establish trade, learn from each other. The galaxy is vast enough for both our civilizations to thrive without conflict." Vox's skin rippled with rage. The audacity of these primitives. You dare make demands of the Dominion? We are 10,000 strong. Each of our ships carries weapons that can crack your planet's crust. "Supreme Commander," Torres replied patiently, as if speaking to a child, "I need you to understand something. While your fleet traveled here at sublight speeds, humanity discovered faster-than-light communication. 20 years ago, we made contact with 12 other spacefaring civilizations. We are not alone, and neither are you." The council chambers display changed again, showing symbols of other alien races, the Centauri Collective, the Andromedae Federation, others the Dominion had never encountered. "Several of these civilizations warned us about the Dominion Empire," Torres continued. "They told us about your conquests, your methods. They also offered us something your scouts never discovered, knowledge. We know about your shields, calibrated, FR energy weapons and kinetic impacts. We know about your plasma cannons that need 3 minutes to charge. We know your fleet's command structure relies on the Devastator remaining operational." Krell turned to his commander, his 4 eyes wide with shock. How could they know these things? But Torres wasn't finished. "More importantly, Supreme Commander, we developed something your empire has never encountered. General Park, please demonstrate." On Earth, Park nodded to a technician. A single quantum cannon fired from a moon base, its target a dead asteroid 50,000 miles from the alien fleet. The asteroid didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, converted instantly to energy that briefly outshone the sun. That was a warning shot, Torres explained. Our quantum weapons don't travel through space. They don't impact shields. They simply decide what exists and what doesn't. Your century of preparation, your shields, your armor, none of it matters against weapons that operate outside the physics you understand. The bridge of the Devastator fell silent. Every warrior, every technician stared at the space where this asteroid had been. Their entire worldview, built over a century of certainty, cracked like ice in warm water. "This is impossible," Vox muttered. "Our calculations, our preparations, ... were based on fighting the humans of 2057, Torres said, her voice carrying a hint of sympathy. "But you're facing the humans of 2157. We've had 100 years to prepare for you, and we used it wisely. Now, I'll ask again. Will you accept peaceful contact, or must we demonstrate these weapons on your fleet?" Vox's mind raced. 4 generations of his people had lived and died for this moment of conquest. The priests had blessed their weapons. The warriors had trained their entire lives. To surrender without fighting would be the greatest shame in Dominion history. But that asteroid, it hadn't been destroyed. It had been erased. If the humans could do that to Rock, what could they do to his ships? "You're bluffing," Krell whispered, urgently to his commander. "One weapon doesn't mean they can stop our entire fleet. If we strike quickly, and if we're wrong?" Vox asked. "If they can do to our ships what they did to that asteroid?" On Station Omega-7, Commander Miller watched. The exchange on his screen. His hand rested on the quantum cannon controls. 36 hours had become 36 minutes. The timeline had accelerated. "Sir," Lieutenant Blake reported, "I'm reading massive energy buildups in the alien fleet. They're charging weapons." Miller nodded. "Then they've made their choice. All stations, prepare for combat. Remember your training. We have 6 minutes once we receive the authorization. 6 minutes to save Earth." The crew took their positions. Each person knew their role. They had drilled this scenario hundreds of times, never knowing it was real preparation for this exact moment. Back in the council chamber, General Park received the same reports. "Madam President, the alien fleet is charging weapons. Estimated time to full charge, 4 minutes. Torres sighed, genuine disappointment in her eyes. "I had hoped they would be wiser." "Very well. General Park, you have authorization to activate the quantum defense grid. All stations are cleared to engage." She turned back to the transmission with Vox. "Supreme Commander, you have one final chance. Stand down your weapons, and we can still. Resolve this peacefully. You have 60 seconds to comply." Vox looked at the human president's face on his screen. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't even angry. She looked ... sad, as if she knew something he didn't. As if the outcome was already decided. The Dominion does not surrender to primitives. Vox declared, his pride overcoming his doubts. "All ships, prepare to fire. We will take this world as our ancestors intended." Torres closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with steel resolve. "Then you've made your choice. General Park, execute Operation Quantum Storm. May history forgive us for." "What happens next?" "All stations," Park's voice echoed across every human defense platform. "You are authorized to engage. Fire at will." The countdown began. 6 minutes that would determine the fate of 2 civilizations. 6 minutes that would prove whether a century of preparation meant anything against human innovation. The universe held its breath. Commander. Miller's hand moved to the firing controls. "All stations, engage quantum targeting. Fire on my mark." Mark. 12 streams of impossible light erupted from Station Omega-7. They didn't travel through space. They simply were, connecting the station to 12 Dominion battleships instantly. The targeted ships didn't explode. Their shields didn't fail. They simply stopped existing in sections, as if reality had taken bites out of them. Across the solar system, every human platform fired simultaneously. Earth's moon bases, the Mars defense grid, even small satellites no bigger than cars, all unleashed quantum destruction that ignored distance, ignored shields, ignored every defense the Dominion had spent a century perfecting. On the Devastator's bridge, alarm screamed. Vox watched in horror as 40 ships simply vanished from his tactical display in the first 3 seconds. "Return fire!" he roared. "All ships return fire!" Plasma beams and kinetic rounds launched toward Earth, but the human defense platforms were already moving, their AI-controlled systems predicting and avoiding incoming fire with mechanical precision. The few hits that landed struck empty platforms, decoys that humanity had built specifically to absorb enemy fire. "Sir," Krell shouted, "the warrior's pride is gone. The eternal conquest. Gone. They're not being destroyed. They're being erased." Minute 2, 1 o'clock to 1:59, Lieutenant. Blake's fingers flew across her console at Station Omega 7. Quantum cannons recharged, acquiring next targets. The second wave of quantum fire was even more precise. The humans weren't randomly shooting. They were surgically dismantling the Dominion fleet's command structure. Flagships vanished. Command carriers ceased to exist. The carefully organized armada began to fragment as individual captains tried to take charge. In Earth's command center, General Park watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. They're trying to adapt. Some ships are attempting random maneuvers. It won't help, President Torres replied. Quantum targeting doesn't care about movement. Once we lock on, the outcome is decided. The Dominion fleet's return fire intensified. Hundreds of plasma beams carved through space, enough firepower to glass entire continents. But Earth's quantum defense grid had another surprise. Small satellites generated quantum interference fields, causing the plasma beams to simply stop existing at random points, their energy dissipating harmlessly into space. Captain Rex of the Dominion cruiser Blade of Empire watched his main gun's plasma beam disappear halfway to its target. "This isn't warfare," he muttered. "This is magic." His ship lurched. Looking at his display, he saw that his engine section had been cleanly removed, as if cut away by an impossibly sharp blade. The ship began to drift, powerless. Minute 3, 2 o'clock to 2:59. 2,000 enemy ships disabled or destroyed, Honor reported. Our casualties, 0. Commander Miller felt no joy in the slaughter. These aliens had traveled a century to die in minutes, their lifetime of training worthless against weapons they couldn't understand or counter. Supreme, Commander Vox stood on his shaking bridge, watching his life's purpose crumble. Half his fleet was gone. Not damaged, not retreating, gone. Erased from existence by an enemy that hadn't even sent a single ship to engage them. "Order all ships to concentrate fire on their moon," he commanded desperately. "If we can destroy their bases." "Sir?" "The moon bases are protected by the same interference fields," Krell reported, his voice hollow with defeat. "Our weapons can't reach them." Elder Keeper Thax entered the bridge, his ancient eyes filled with understanding. "Commander, we must consider surrender." "Never." Vox's pride burned even as his fleet died around him. The Dominion does not yield. But individual ship captains were already making different choices. The captain of the Star Crusher, watching ships vanish around him, broadcast on an open channel. "Human forces, we surrender. Please, we surrender." The quantum beam that had been locked onto his ship paused, then shifted to another target. The Star Crusher was left untouched, drifting but alive. Asterisk. Minute 4, 3 o'clock to 3:59. The surrender cascade began. One ship, then 10, then 100. Dominion captains, watching their surrendering comrades being spared, began broadcasting their own surrenders. The warrior culture that had sustained them. For a century cracked under the reality of complete helplessness. "Cowards," Vox raged. "Fight to the last. Die with honor." But what honor was there in being erased by an enemy you couldn't even touch? The quantum weapons continued their work. But now they targeted only ships still charging weapons. Those that powered down were left disabled but intact. President Torres watched the surrenders multiply. General Park, order all stations to accept surrenders. Disable hostile ships only. We're not here to commit genocide. The targeting parameters changed instantly. Quantum beams became more precise, removing weapon systems and engines while leaving life support intact. The aliens would live, but they would never threaten Earth again. On Station Omega-7, Lieutenant Blake noticed something. Commander, the Devastator is doing something different. Massive energy buildup in their core. Miller's eyes widened. They're going to self-destruct. If a ship that size detonates this close to Earth. Already on it, Blake replied, her hands steady despite the stakes. Quantum lock established, firing. The beam struck the Devastator's power core with surgical precision. Instead of destroying it, the quantum weapon simply removed the components necessary for overload. The massive ship went dark. Its suicide attempt prevented by humanity's mercy. Minute 4 o'clock to 4:59. The battle was effectively over. 8,000 Dominion ships floated powerless in space. Some were intact, their crews having surrendered. Others were hulks with their military capabilities erased, but life support maintained. Only a few hundred ships continued to fight, and now their numbers decreased with each passing second. Commander Vox stood in the emergency lighting of his powerless bridge. Around him, his crew looked at him with a mixture of fear and accusation. 4 generations of preparation ended in 5 minutes. How? He asked the darkness. How did we fail? Elder Thax placed a hand on his shoulder. We didn't fail, Commander. We were defeated by an enemy that changed the rules of war itself. There is no shame in losing to the impossible. But Vox felt the shame anyway. The weight of a century of expectation, the dreams of his ancestors, all crushed in moments by a species they had dismissed as primitive. On Earth, crowds had gathered in cities to watch the battle on public screens. There were no cheers as alien ships died. Humanity understood the tragedy unfolding above them. An entire civilization's purpose being erased as efficiently as their ships. Minute 6, 5 o'clock to 5:59. Sir, Anna reported to Commander Miller, 95% of the alien fleet is disabled or surrendered. The remaining ships are powering down weapons. Miller nodded. Ceasefire. All stations cease fire. The quantum beams stopped. Space fell silent except for the emergency broadcasts from thousands of crippled alien ships. The greatest armada in Dominion. History had been reduced to helpless hulks in exactly 6 minutes. General Park's voice echoed across all human defenses. Operation Quantum Storm is complete. All stations stand down but maintain targeting locks. Medical and rescue ships prepare for deployment. President Torres opened a channel to the alien fleet. Survivors of the Dominion fleet, this is President Torres. The battle is over. We will begin rescue operations shortly. Your wounded will be treated. Your crews will be safe. This didn't have to happen, but now that it has, we choose mercy. On the Devastator, Commander Vox heard the message through this. Emergency speakers. Mercy. The primitives they had come to conquer were offering mercy. It was more devastating than any weapon. Commander, Krell said quietly, should we respond? Vox looked around his broken bridge, at his defeated crew, at the shattered remains of his certainty. His grandfather had started this journey believing in Dominion superiority. His father had continued it with absolute faith. And now he would end it with a lesson learned in 6 minutes. Never underestimate humanity. Open a channel, Vox said, his voice barely a whisper. When the connection established, he spoke the words that 4 generations of his family would have considered impossible. President Torres, the Dominion fleet surrenders. We accept your mercy. The war that had taken a century to arrive was over in 6 minutes. But the real story was just beginning. Asterisk.